Hello, YouTube. How's everybody going? Good to be here. Let's get our friends over from Twitch in on this thing. Because this is where we do the recording, this is kind of the show within a show without a show kind of show. Here we go. Everybody, welcome to the Stratosphere Studio. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and it is the 1st of April, otherwise known as April 1st, otherwise known as April Fool's Day. I don't do that kind of silliness. Not since my family was killed in that tragic auto accident. I don't on April 4th, 1st, 2nd. You get the idea. I hope everybody's doing well. Got a bunch of fun stuff to talk about today. As I posted on Facebook today, it's free at last, free at last. Thank God, free at last. I mentioned it, I think, on Stratosphere Lounge Show, but for those of you that are Monday Nighters, the Frank Luke 6-season box set, limited edition, 391 pages of script have been delivered. There will be 2 rewrites, but I don't have to worry about either one of those right now. So for the first time in, 8 months, I haven't had this incredible amount of work to carry. Now, many times, thank you very much for all the kind words, everybody. Many times I've talked about this project. Oh, that damn script! I have to finish this damn script. I think it's really quite good, and whatever happens with it, or whatever format it ends up in, or whatever fleet we end up serving in, it is. It's just I think it's a really, really compelling story. It's just tremendous emotions and really beautifully balanced between one guy's desire to do things his own way when he's got a lot of talent versus the needs of a administrative system, and on the other hand, a lunatic rebel who's nothing but a selfish narcissist versus an idiocracy of a bureaucracy that doesn't belong anywhere where serious business is. So I'm just very, very happy with it. But that's actually out of there now. Roadrunner wants to know what excuse I'm going to use now that the Luke script is gone. I haven't figured one out yet, but I thought maybe we could discuss that later on during the show. There's a number of possibilities. None come to mind, none as good as that. But in any event, I do have a lot of thoughts on a lot of things tonight, so that'll be fun for me and probably barely tolerable for the rest of you. So first things first, I was talking to my great friend Phil earlier, just a couple hour ago, I guess, about the Eclipse. So we didn't know if we were going to fly, and then we were talking about driving. Natasha didn't really want to drive, but then she had the idea we could rent an RV, which sounds like a great idea to me. So we're all set to go with the RV. And then I got the latest as it exists of now. We're recording this at 6:15 p.m. on Pacific time on April 1st. The latest forecasts for Fort Worth, Texas area are severe clear through Sunday evening, at which point a front is coming through, and it's going to result in heavy overcast days for, a number of days. Now, for those of you who are up on latest events, you may realize the shocking irony of the front coming in on Sunday night when the eclipse is on Monday afternoon. Now, as Phil points out, it's nice knowing smart guys, because I was not really aware of this, but generally when forecasts are wrong, it's because the weather comes late rather than early. And if that's the case, as the week goes on, we may find that front is being delayed, and we may get lucky. It may not come in until Monday night. I don't care if it comes in on Monday afternoon at 4:30. But it's still very fluid, so I haven't made a decision yet. So here's just the practical events for it. We're planning to go. If we get closer, and it looks very likely that in fact, if it looks essentially inevitable that this front is coming through, I'd have to be gone for 5 days. I've got a sick cat, and I think the only disappointment that would be greater than missing an eclipse would be for me to drive, spend thousands of dollars and drive for 4.5, 5 days just to find out that there are clouds overhead. And Bart's saying they're also predicting huge traffic jams, like 14-hour traffic jams. So I thought maybe Texas, that the driving plan would be a good plan, but we have a place to stay on the night of the 7th if we do the RV thing, and I was planning on arriving late at night. So yes, Lady Jane says if you have an RV, you can take your kitty. I was thinking that too. Natasha thought it was a bad idea. I think it's rather a good idea, but we'll see. Anyway, I am looking at, I had to, because I thought we were going to be in good shape up until about an hour ago when I've heard the latest about the forecast. So for the sake of the argument, if it's clear, we'll be there. If there's a chance it's clear, we're going to be there. Even if there's a thin chance it's clear, we'll be there. But if it looks like it's not going to be clear, then I think I'm going to have to bail. Only because, Natasha's not super keen about 4 days on the road, and it is just what it is. I've given this a lot of thought, and let me just be clear. I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. Planning on going, and I thought, man, which one would be more heartbreaking? Finding out that you stayed home and it was clear at the Eclipse site, or spending 22 hours driving there, 22 hours driving back, that's without traffic, and then getting there in time to watch the clouds come over and have the eclipse happen, because there's no point in being there if you can't see the corona. It just gets dark in the daytime, which is interesting and kind of cool, but I think I'd rather, if it turns out that the weather looks bad, I will probably just sleep through the thing. I'll just stay up all night and just sleep through it. I don't want to deal with it. But that's the way it's looking right now. So we will have a number of days still, and I suppose we'll do the final call on Thursday for Stratosphere Lounge. So let's see, if we go, we would leave on Saturday morning. So we could certainly do an update on Thursday, and I've really got till probably, depending on how late I could cancel that reservation if I make one, I've got till probably Friday, maybe even till Saturday. So point is, I think by the time it would be time for us to hit the road on the morning of the 6th, I think by the morning of the 6th, we'll have a good idea of what the weather's going to be like on the 8th. I think by that point, the window's narrow enough so that we've got a fairly high reliability, especially if this front is supposed to come in, 18 hours before the eclipse. So it's extremely disappointing, and I was actually got pre-briefed for the shock when somebody told me a month ago or two that the chance of the clear weather was something like 48% or something. So are you kidding? In Texas? I said, yeah, it's spring in Texas. It actually does rain there once in a while. So that's the latest eclipse stuff. If we go, we will give you a dot on a map where we're going to be, or where we're planning to be. And if it turns out that as we get there and the front is iffy and it looks like it may still be going and we go, we may wake up on the morning of the 8th and at 7 a.m. and just decide the whole caravan is heading to northwest, and we'll just see what we can do. The only way I can get even close to dealing with this, because I've been looking forward to this since the first few moments of the sun coming out back in 2016? When that last eclipse ended, I said, I'm going to the next one. I can't wait. I was, 7 years ahead in the future? Now it's a week away. And the only way if it turns out that it does look like it's going to get clouded out, then I just comfort myself by saying, 2017, thank you. Then I can comfort myself by saying, well, there will be other eclipses. I'll just have to fly my Learjet up to Nova Scotia and watch it that way. All right, so that's the latest on the eclipse story, so we'll let you know. Pack Allegra, and also pack Valium, and lots of it. Valium drip. Natasha can drive me home. We drive all the way out there, and then there's a cloud right over the thing. I'm checking out. But this is the nature of natural phenomenon. They don't actually work for us, unfortunately. So anyway, I have seen one. And so I can say that I did that. And I hope to see another one, and we're planning on it. But that there is a cloud on the horizon. If you'll notice what I did there. Okay, so that's done for at least until Thursday. So I've been thinking a lot about things and where we're going forward from there. I'm still trying. I'm planning on going. I just want to make this clear again. I'm planning on going. If I sound disappointed, it's because I'm disappointed. But we're planning on going. So we'll see. Next solar eclipse is 2040. That might be next solar eclipse in America. Surely it's not the next solar eclipse. I thought they were very rare. I think there's one almost every year somewhere on the Earth. And by 2040, I should be able to afford the Learjet to go watch it up in Nova Scotia, although they have to wheel me out of it. Okay, so anyway. So here's the thing. I've got all this stuff that's been here for months, getting ready for the new shows. I'm going to be rolling those babies out, and so I guess I just need to talk a little politics here. Not even politics really, just mostly inside baseball. So here we go. This situation with Daily Wire and Candace Owens is not getting better. It seems to be getting worse. And from a purely completely detached, take all of your feelings out of it point of view, this kind of looks like a business opportunity for me. I know that sounds cold and calculating, but like I said, I don't know Candace very well, but I got a lot of close friends in this, and it's not fun to watch. I'm not enjoying it, but I am quite stunned at the reaction about this. So all I mean to say by that as a business opportunity is simply this. There appears to be, from the comment sections that I've been reading over the last couple of days, there appears to be some new membership money floating around in people's pockets. And I finally find myself, after 8 months of working like the devil on a screenplay with time on my hand. Yeah, I've heard a good one coming up in Spain in 26. So anyway, enough of the eclipse, but thank you. So yeah, so I thought, well, what would it take to kind of move into that space? Well, first thing I'd have to do would be to deliver on the promise of the 3 shows that I've been talking about for 6 months now and haven't been able to do because of the script, but that is actually coming along. So new episodes of Story Mechanics and Major Mace Mattingly. And then my political commentary is going to be on things to come. And this is a thought that I had just earlier today when I started thinking about this. I'm done talking about the Daily Wire thing as I said a few things about how I felt about it on Thursday. I'm not talking about it in terms of anything other than it's a shift. So I thought about this and I thought, well, what's stopping you from doing a daily morning show like they have over on that other place and those other places? And the answer is my character flaws. Now, I have taken a bit of a beating in the last 18 months, which, well, not 18, 15, which are entirely self-inflicted, I might add. And I begin to realize that some of these lessons may have actually stuck. So when I say it's like a character flaw, here's the character flaw. I have been doing trifecta and right angles on Tuesday mornings since 2008. So we're pushing, 16 years, something like that. And every morning at 10:30, I'm here for those shows. Now, sometimes I'm a little late. I'm 5 or 10 minutes late. But every Tuesday morning, including tomorrow morning, this is where I'll be at that time. And the reason I haven't missed that in 14 years is because I got 2 people waiting for me. I did 3 months of 5 days a week call in to the Grant Stinchfield show, and I was in the chair every day for that at 9 a.m. And then I did another 3 months of the Hot Mic show, where I was in the chair every day at 10 o'clock. And I made every one of those shows because there were people waiting for me. There was a crew. When I have something that doesn't have a crew waiting for me, and I mean no disrespect to my audience because I do all of this for the audience, but as the on-time record of the Stratosphere Lounge and Stratosphere Studio will show you, which is not exactly stellar, I estimate just a Stratosphere Lounge, I want to say, has at least a 15 to 20% cancellation rate, I would say. Something like that. Now, Stratosphere Lounge and Stratosphere Studio both occur at nighttime, so there are often conflicts that I have to deal with at nighttime and usually just cannot make it. So I don't feel like it, I just can't make it. Those would not be present in the morning. But but moving back to America was streamed live, and I was doing that every day, then every other day, then every couple days, and then it just kind of eventually faded away because I had nothing else to say about it. And there it is. As my friend Phil pointed out, you did the Chronosphere Lounge when the coronavirus broke, did that every single day at 6 o'clock, and did that every day for 30 days. And it's because we had some time on our hands. But what I'm thinking about is, it could, look, I mean, there's obviously some kind of market. Still amazes me for the, hey, the Bill Whittle show, what's Bill going to talk about today? But one thing I was thinking about is, as I was driving around catching up on my body cam videos now that I've got, don't have to be working, these 18-hour days on this script, thought occurred to me that if mental illness in this country right now had visible signs like pustules or, whether buboes, the bubonic plague, if you had green patches on your skin like in the Miri episode of Star Trek, if mental illness were visible on a person, we'd be in a full panic at the extent of the epidemic. That's the thought I've been having for several days now. It's much worse in blue states. In parts of the country, it's completely non-existent. Every time I see these police body cam videos, I see absolute lunatics, dangerous lunatics. And at the same time, I also see 3 or 4 policemen or women who are true blue, straight arrows, adults, rational, in fact, unbelievably controlled and disciplined people. So what I was thinking is maybe I would do a show called Things to Come and make everything on that general perspective. And it also occurred to me that maybe the thing to do would be to start off with 1 a week or 2 weeks, then maybe Wednesday, Friday, and if I'm keeping it up, then I can ramp it up to 1 a day. This would give me the opportunity to do things like reaction videos, but with the focus on things to come, with a focus on here's what's coming. Now, when I started thinking about that, I thought, okay, I got to make sure that this whole thing's not a downer because I know we're heading for some really rough times, and I'm not worried about it. I'm concerned about it, but I'm not scared, and I'm not pessimistic. I'm just kind of, got my little antenna up, and so what I was kind of thinking would be to, if we're to do that, eventually do a daily show called Things to Come, would I be able to shoehorn everything into that format, and would that make everything a downer? But this isn't about the end of the world. This is about getting through what's coming to the to the bright sunshine beyond. And I thought, my God, I've got the graphic. I got a guy, he's staring at these burned out buildings, and it's just really dark and everything. I thought, what could I do? Could I do like a sunrise or something to put something cheerful there or something? And, that could be a sunset. Or what about parting clouds? Or maybe they're gathering clouds. I thought, no, just put one star. Just put one star there in the sky. That's all you need, At this burning, bombed out cities for the graphic for things to come. You can see it on the website. And there's a guy kind of looking at the wreckage. And then just have a cross star, like a Star of Bethlehem star, just like there. That's all it would take to completely change the visual message from it's all over to no. Here's how we're gonna get through this storm. I was thinking about this, and I thought maybe the way to do it is to say, look, here's what this show is. By looking at this stuff every day, what things to come is it's a do line. Now, for those of you who may not remember the Cold War, I guess it was in the 1960s when it was first built. Once intercontinental ballistic missiles became a thing, we realized that we had maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes of a warning from an attack, and that's if we happen to catch it. So all across Canada and up across the pole, northern parts of Canada, we had an Air Force command, I guess it's still there, called NORAD, North American Air Defense Command, Joint Canadian-American Command. And we had a series of radar installations, they're still there, and they were called the DEW line, and it stood for Distant Early Warning. And what these were the most powerful radars ever made. That's the one signal that will carry beyond our solar system, by the way. This idea that they're going to be watching Beverly Hillbillies, 30 light years out seems unlikely, but those radars, those signals, if you're looking for civilization out there, you're going to pay attention to it. That's a bright light. And so I thought that's what this is. This show is the Distant Early Warning show. Here's what's coming, and here's what we have to do to get ready for it. As an example, I was looking at some of these mentally ill people, and I thought, what do we do about this? Well, first of all, we're going to have to bring back institutions. Some of these people need to be locked up. And my next thought was, oh, great, we're going to be locking up people for their mental state. I wonder if that could possibly be abused. I'm more afraid of that than I am of crazy people walking around, but comes a point when there are so many crazy people walking around that you really got to do something. And then that creates a problem. It's like, okay, if you've decided that you closed the mental asylums decades ago, and now you have this pandemic of craziness out there, what do you do to avoid turning into road FEMA camps? What do you do to avoid that? How do you handle this crisis? There's no question that there are crazy people out there and that they don't belong in society. There's no question about it. They're just in Los Angeles or any of these other cities. People just walking down the street and some woman just starts stabbing them with a knife. We can all agree that that's not civilized society, and that's not the country we should be living in. We can all agree with that. But then what happens? Well, these are problems that have to be solved, and they have to be solved together. And I think talking about those things would be valuable and interesting, mostly interesting. And here's another thought I had, which was astonishing in its simplicity, really. This whole thing about the fourth turning and the 80-year cycle and all of that, and the theory behind all this. This thought hit me just 2-3 hours ago, driving in the car, and I thought, well, what if that theory isn't true? What if it's just wrong? And then I just, like a thunderclap, I just had this thing. It's like, it doesn't matter. If the cyclical theory isn't correct, it doesn't matter, because the threats are still coming from where I identified the threats are coming from. We are going to have the problems with the violence in the cities. We are going to have the problems with the borders. And we are going to have the problems with millions, tens of millions of Americans who have no emotional control. They are 4-year-olds running around in grown-up bodies. And whether this cyclical theory is true or not, and I suspect it is, and I'm going to go along as if it is, but that's essentially irrelevant. What's coming? What's coming? And and I think I have some fairly unique insights on this. And the reason I think I have insights on this is because I don't play the big conservative game. I don't watch any of these people. I don't listen to their shows. I don't do the tweet wars. I don't know what Tucker Carlson said last night. Not interested in that. I got a much wider information net than that. And it's like you put your ear to the ground and you can get a sense of where things are going by what's shaking and in what direction. Now these are very vague. They're not specific predictions, and they're not meant to be. They're trends. It's flow. And where's the flow going? The flow is going to lawlessness, and it's going to lawlessness in a way that we've never seen before. We've never had criminal activity and criminal behavior used to be the domain of criminals. Now, criminal behavior is normalized. Now, rich suburban white kids are the ones who saying, "I hate you effing pigs," and are the ones who are resisting arrest and driving drunk and beating on police officers. You know, this used to be what hardened criminals do. No one ever thought that you could just walk up and start assaulting a police officer. That was what criminals do. These are people who become criminals when they do it, but they're just the entire idea of compliance and the law is just astonishing to them. They don't know what to do about it. So I think that's what I'm chewing over. Now, needless to say, before I start cracking open that thing and making promises about that, I have to get some new episodes of the new stuff up, and that's what we're working on too. So I've got the screen hung, and I've got all this other stuff. I've got a little switching thing. It wouldn't be a terribly big deal for me to prepare the next day's reaction reel, and I don't have to talk for 3 hours. Frankly, what I was just thinking is I just look at Instapundit every morning, pick a couple stories, it'd be like right angle, and just say, hey, look. Say, for example, I'm gonna, unless Steve or Scott wants it, tomorrow morning we shoot our right angles, and I am doing one tomorrow on. It's funny how this Stratosphere Studio show is turning into something so political. Usually it's the other way around. This business about declaring Easter Sunday to be Trans Visibility Day is revolting and disgusting and offensive and a bunch of other things. Oh, we just decided it would be March 31st. Yeah, it never occurred to you that would be Easter Sunday? No. Okay. It's exactly what it is. FN Geek AZ says it was a slap in the face. That's precisely exactly what it is. It's a slap in the face. It is an FU to the country. It is a guy riding a horse and planting a banner on top of a hill and saying, do something about it. It's knocking a chip off of somebody's shoulder. It is just plain slap in the face that this would happen on Easter Sunday. And Gavin Newsom and his wife are talking about, as we celebrate Trans Visibility Day. Okay. So what's the plan there? Because, and of course, the so-called president of the United States is saying, I just want trans people to know that we see you. And Gavin Newsom is saying, this is where we celebrate all of the incredible achievements and contributions that trans people have made. And I just want to say, name one. I'll just sit here and wait. Name one. So I can't think of one. I can think of plenty that Christians have made, but I can't think of one of the contributions and achievements that trans Americans have made. Not one. So they are configuring, they are prepping the battle space. This is designed to provoke a reaction from us. It's designed to make us nuts. It's designed to make us crazy. And this is intentional. They are. I used to think that they were masters of psychology. They are, but they've got such an enormous aid now. People, when you talk about AI and following your mouse clicks, it's natural enough for people to think, oh my God, they're reading my mail. Yes, but they're not reading your mail. They don't care what you say. They don't give a damn about what you have to say. But they care very much about what you and everyone else has to say. So yes, they're reading your mail, but they're not reading your mail to find out what you think. They're reading your mail to get 1/350 of a particle of data in on what the population is thinking and doing. That's why they're reading your mail. It's got nothing to do with you. All of it together is just a very, very potent enemy, because they are able to calibrate their response and then do bomb damage assessment immediately after it to see whether they use too much force, not enough force, whether they could have gotten away with more, and so on. The amount of information that's collected on all humans on the face of the earth, but specifically in Western societies, is there to allow the elites to determine the level of the temperature at which they're going to slowly boil the frog. How fast can we turn up the water temperature without making the frog jump out? That's what it's all about. So I personally think that there's virtually nothing that we could talk about on a basis or a twice or thrice weekly basis that doesn't connect to this, and then what do we do about it? And the nice thing about what do we do about it is, I like the fact that I don't have to come up with all this stuff. There's so many tremendous comments here in the comments section, and so many great emails that we get and conversations and all the rest of it. This is something we're going to have to figure out together. I was also thinking about this too in terms of America. People see things falling apart, and it's true in universities and all of the lawlessness and the George Floyd protests, all the whole thing, the election integrity, all of that. And we think the whole thing's falling down. I don't see it as falling. I don't see the thing as falling down. I see America as not collapsing. I see it as compacting. And that's a different thing completely. I don't see America as collapsing. I see it compacting. And when I say America, I mean the idea of what we think America is. Gavin Newsom is not an American. Gavin Newsom's a transnationalist narcissist, and so is the guy who claims to be president of the United States, who doesn't know what day it is. It's compacting. The America that we all love is there and fully intact. It's just gotten smaller. And there's a lot of stuff on the outside of this now that is very destructive. And so there's not a lot of bleed over. In other words, what the left is doing to the institutions is not affecting us internally in our hearts. It's compacting it. And so the more they compact it, the more difficult it gets to penetrate. So just as an off the top of my head example, off the top of my head, we have 11 carrier battle groups. Off the top of my head, just as a whim of an example, if we were to say that the military is so badly compromised by wokeism and so on, that we were only able to field 3 carrier battle groups, that out of the total personnel necessary to run 11 carrier battle groups, we could only do 3 of them with fully trustworthy people, fully trustworthy, patriotic, competent, grown-up adult people with no chips on their shoulders or access to grind. Then we'd have 3 carrier battle groups, which is still more than anything in the world combined. You see where I'm going with this? Compacted. Okay. All right. There's no question that the overall quality of the military is going down. No, it's no question about it. But that doesn't mean that we can't staff. It'd be more than 3, by the way. You see where I'm going? So all of this stuff is like trying to identify the problem. We're dealing with a conflict that's never been faced before, at least not that I'm aware of in history, where this is a giant chess game of psychology. And the reason that this one's about psychology and not about violent coercion is because of the Second Amendment. It's just that simple. The reason that this isn't going to be a shooting war and is instead a psychological war is because of the Second Amendment. So this is why this revolution that's been going on, this Marxist revolution, is quiet. So when it comes down to this kind of thing, I look at these people who are causing all of this mayhem and screaming at the top of their lungs, just furious people, until the handcuffs go on, and then they start to cry. They start crying and they start saying, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. So we're dealing with 4-year-olds, and they sound tough and they make a loud noise, but they don't scare me. They don't scare me the way I'd be scared about dealing with actual SS or the actual NKVD or the Cheka or any of the actual Red Guards. It's a psychological war. And this business about making Easter Sunday day of transvisibility is a bombing raid on our infrastructure. And it needs a response. So that's basically it. So anyway, these are things that are running through my mind. First thing to do is to deliver on the promises that I made for 6 months ago, but it was 391 pages, and it's really rather good. So there we go. I think we'll take some questions, and then Road Rider says, "What are the parallels with the Empire of Terror?" Well, the parallels are that the leadership is comprised of the same exact kind of people who have the exact same motives as Lenin and Trotsky. Intellectuals, failures, people who believe there's nothing, people whose entire universe consists of thought. They are heads in a jar. They're like on Futurama. They're disembodied heads in jars, and all they think about is theory, and people are theory, and all of this is a means to self-gratification. And they're like characters in Dungeons and Dragons or Traveller or any other role-playing game, where they roll the dice 8 times and they put all of their stats into intelligence. Nothing into education, nothing into wisdom, nothing into agility, nothing into strength, nothing into charisma. No, it's all in intelligence. And they think that intelligence is the be-all and end-all of everything. And because they're so deeply embedded in their intelligence, they're profoundly stupid people. You genuinely have to be really quite bright to believe some of the things that these people believe. To be able to have you've got to be really very intelligent in order to create a world that is so detached from the real world on every level that you are able to convince yourself that you're seeing things that aren't there and that you're not seeing things that are there. This is the story of intellectuals. That's how they work. They're the ones who come back, they go home, the old school red diaper hippie liberals, the old school liberals. You don't see too many of them anymore. But these are the kind of people, I saw them in my 20s and 30s. They would live in a dilapidated apartment that smells of old socks, and they would have all these books on the walls by these Sartre and all of these philosophers, and they'd talk about Kierkegaard, and they'd read it, and they would. and they're wearing the most. They've got the only thing they can afford in their house in terms of appliances is they've got some kind of special Bulgarian model clothes rumpler that basically takes any kind of fabric and compresses it under tremendous pressure with a lot of steam so that their clothes are perpetually wrinkled. Not just kind of wrinkled, just rumpled. And they're angry and they're bitter and they're envious. And the reason they're envious is because they can't stand the fact that Jimmy Bob, who owns the Ford dealership, has a house with, $12 million and a big old pool, and he's just such a bore, and he knows nothing about, Proust, and they have nothing but contempt for him, and they're angry at the world because he has this stuff and he's an idiot, and I know all of these things and I am dirt poor. And they're too smart to realize that the reason that Jimmy Bob, or Jim Bob as I call him because we're tight, he got me a good deal. The reason Jim Bob is a multimillionaire and you're in absolute poverty is because Jim Bob is offering something of value to other people and you're not. And that's the part you can't stand. You're not offering value to anybody. You're doing what you want to do, which is read all the time. And he's working. And so he may, in fact, not may, he in many cases is in fact a terrible bore and has no taste and has piggish attitudes about things and has no sense of the finer things in life, which a complete person should have. But you think that he got his money unfairly and you want it. You think he got his power unfairly and you want it, but you don't want to work for it. You want to read for it. And this is where today's progressives are identical to Lenin and Trotsky and Bukharin and Kamenev, Zinoviev, all of them. We're going to theory our way into power because God knows we don't want to work for it. This is why Donald Trump is not like them. This is why Donald Trump is fundamentally different from them. Donald Trump made a ton of money. This is what's so ironic about all these trials that he's going through now, all these legal battles. He made his money legally. He made his money volitionally. People bought things from him they weren't forced to. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, hundreds of millions of dollars. Joe Biden's were tens of millions of dollars. Where did this money come from? I know that the book wasn't a bestseller. Where's the money come from? This is why Trump is such a danger to them. Is primarily, look, Donald Trump is not like Ronald Reagan in the degree that Ronald Reagan taught himself conservatism based on his personal feelings. He knew what he believed in. He knew what was right, and he knew what worked. And then he went out and did an awful lot of reading and studying when he was on those road tours for General Electric and talking to people and listening to people. And he basically taught himself his value system. And Trump doesn't have a background of being a philosopher or even a great communicator. But the reason that Trump is who he is and the champion of freedom now is because he doesn't need them. He's not part of the grift. He's not part of the government grift. He may be part of his own real estate grifts, but he's grifting against other grifters in a market that's built on grift. I don't get it. I really don't. Well, excuse me one second. Sometimes I see things that just get my attention. Eric Trexler, Bill, I've been following you for a while now. I'm currently in the JAG program for the United States Marine Corps. Congratulations to you, Eric. I'm counting on you, and so is everybody else, to keep that magnificent institution honest in the face of a full court press coming down from above that are orchestrated by people like Barack Obama through their sock puppet and pushed down on us through some of the great military leaders in the country's history, like Admiral Rachel Levine, who undoubtedly is going to get full Admiral 5-star status before this thing is over. Name one accomplishment of this person that doesn't have to do anything with them being mentally ill. I can't think of a one. All of the achievements and all of the tremendous contributions. I'm still sitting here waiting. I'm waiting. And I'll keep waiting. So, that's what I've been thinking about doing. So, anyway, I'm glad to be able to be back, and when this show's over, I get to go home. I don't have to sit here for another 4 hours till 2 or 3 in the morning. I don't want that to sound like it was hard. It was by far the hardest thing I had to do. But on the other hand, it's not on the same level of granularity that, let's say, that James Manchester's biography of Winston Churchill is, but it is a full life. And when we get to his final days, it's a full life down to pretty much every hour. So there we go. All right, let's see what we got here. How about that as I'm waiting, how about that Ron DeSantis in that anti-squatter business, huh? How hard was that to do? I'm going to sign a piece of paper that's going to put into law what every single human being on either side of the issue knows to be fundamentally true. And that is that the person who owns the house, and that the person who's broken in and is sitting there in that house is a home invader, a criminal, a leech, a danger, and like that. Like that. It's enough to make me consider living in a world of 130% humidity. It really is. Okay, let's see what we got here. Oh, one weird little aside here, real quick, as we dig up these things here. As I was wrapping up the Frank Luke thing, this is just a bizarre sort of, not even a coincidence really. The second to last scene in the Frank Luke story is where, so Frank, as a kid, well, he died as a kid, so he gets to Rockwell Field, which is North Island Naval Station in San Diego for his flight training. And he spends 31 days there, 32 days there, and he meets this 16-year-old girl, and they get engaged, and he takes off for the war, and she never sees him again. She never forgets him either. She gets married again, gets divorced, cuts all the clippings he ever did. So I have this scene where I need to show that she never gave up on him. And so how do I do that? Well, I know that she had a box of his clippings, and that's fine. But how do I show it? So I've got a scene where it's like, end of a family day and like a visit to grandma's, and young, middle-aged son and his son and his wife, and they're getting into their 1973 Mercury Marquis station wagon. And this is 1973, and the kid says, "Good night, Grandma," and the son says, "Good night, Mom," and the wife says, "Good night, Marie." And we go inside and we see the pictures and the piano, and we realize it's her. It's the 16-year-old girl that Frank was engaged to in 1918. And she's sitting there watching TV at the end of the night. She's falling asleep. She's watching the evening news. And in 1973, this announcer comes on and says, "And finally tonight, World War I ace of aces and racing legend Eddie Rickenbacker died today at the age of 82 in Zurich, Switzerland." And that wakes her up. Rickenbacker, to his enormous credit, hardly ever mentioned his victories without mentioning Frank Luke. He said when he was awarded, when he finally received his Medal of Honor in 1930 for what he did during the war in 1918, one of the first things out of his mouth were, "If Frank Luke had lived, nobody would have heard of me." That's a profoundly noble thing to say. Of all the things that came out of this, the thing I liked the most was writing Eddie Rickenbacker. I really, really, really liked him. And unlike Frank, he was just nothing but cheerful. So he comes in like a rock star, and he's just always positive, and he's a leader. And as I was doing the research on Eddie Rickenbacker's last days, I grew up on Key Biscayne in Florida. Well, after I moved from Bermuda, we moved to Key Biscayne, Florida, which is on Rickenbacker Causeway, which I knew was named after Eddie Rickenbacker, because you don't drive over Rickenbacker Causeway every day when you're 10 years old and not find out who Eddie Rickenbacker is. So I found out he was a World War I ace, and I knew all that from the time I was 10. But what I didn't know, believe it or not, after all these years, I did not know, and I'm still gobsmacked by it, that one of the reasons it's named Rickenbacker Causeway, I just thought they named the causeway after Eddie Rickenbacker because he was big in Miami and helped start Eastern Airlines. But Eddie Rickenbacker lived on Key Biscayne. And I got there in 1970. Rickenbacker died in 73. There's a solid chance that at some point or another, I passed Eddie Rickenbacker on my bike, or he was at the 7-Eleven. He possibly knew my dad. In fact, I'd be quite surprised if he didn't know my dad, because my dad was kind of, the Sonesta Beach Hotel was the first big hotel on Key Biscayne. And when Nixon would come down, stay at the little White House, they'd have events at my dad's hotel. So there's no question. I really think it's almost virtually impossible that my dad didn't at least been introduced to him and said hi. And I look back on it now and I realize I spent this whole time writing this man, trying to bring him back to life. And I probably lived half a mile away from him. And never occurred to me. And that made me want to go back in time real bad, because I would like to talk to Eddie Rickenbacker very much. And I get the feeling from the kind of guy he was, that if some kid had rode up to him on his bicycle and said, "Are you Eddie Rickenbacker?" and he would have been probably 81 or so, 80, somewhere around there. "Yes. Can I talk to you about airplanes?" I get the feeling Rickenbacker would say, "Come on in, have a Coke." So anyway, it was quite a shock. Thank you very much for that, Eric Trixler, with a super chat. And go get 'em, man. The only thing this country needs and ever will need will be honest people in positions of holding dishonest people to the fire. That's all we ever needed. It's all we ever will need. So for people like you and all the policemen out there and all of the guardians and all the watchdogs and all the sheepdogs, God bless every one of you. Eastern was the bomb for a while. Yeah, Eastern Airlines was it. All right, so let's see, back to the forum questions here. Yeah. Stratopop questions for 4-1, curated by the one and only Eric Blake. Eric, thank you for everything. Thank you especially for Major Mace Mattingly and the many other really brilliant suggestions, including strong support for calling this thing the fullback when I mentioned it in passing. I was going to call it the fullback, and no, call it the fullback. Yeah, actually, thanks. Wow. Chris Elisar said, Chris, was that your name? Were you called Chris Elisar when you were there? Because I don't remember the name, and I find the amount of overlap with you would be almost astonishing. He wrote, his stepdad worked at the Miami base of Eastern Airlines for 35 years and had the pleasure of meeting both Eddie Rickenbacker and Frank Borman. How about that? Never fails to elicit a astonished response seeing all these people who were there. All right, here we go. One, we got an Eric Blake, got a big one. Got a Road Rider. We got a Eli Knorr, that's a newish name. Ray Juarez, Steve Young, Janie Warnerman, Jacob Belchik, Roadrunner, David Newland, and and our restroom is out of order, so I'm gonna have to hurry up. Okay, I've got like an entire page from Eric, so let me see if I can quickly summarize this. This is Entertainment Night, so let's not forget that. So here's Erica's update on the Disney board fight. Seemed like we kind of lucked out, so sum it up, relatively reasonable, and here we go. Bad news is 3 key individuals whose names you may know all too well have shocked everyone in their support of Bob Iger. So for those of you unfamiliar, there was an attempt to essentially change the direction of Disney through voting shares in the board. and it was viewed by many, including Doomcock. By the way, I've got a show coming up with Doomcock either this week or next week. I'm going to be talking about what Star Trek is or isn't, so it's good to be dealing with him again. And so Bob Iger is obviously the president of Disney, left, came back. He's the guy who destroyed the company because of the woke politics, and so this was viewed as kind of the last chance to, put something that looked like Star Wars back on the rails. But 3 people came out against this takeover. One of them is George Lucas. No, I'm well aware that George Lucas said, no, Bob Iger's our guy. It's not for amateurs. Magic is not for amateurs, so says George Lucas, the creator of Jar Jar Binks. Exhibit B, Michael Eisner, former CEO of Disney. Eisner led the company to tremendous growth. But I'm not surprised that he voted with the board, or with the status quo. And then Abigail Disney, granddaughter of Roy and grandniece of Walt. 3rd generation, which basically is the 1st generation builds the empire, 2nd generation manages the empire, 3rd generation squanders the empire. Okay, so all these people went with Iger. Now the good news, says Eric. Increasing number of very prominent stock consultants, which are enormously instrumental in influencing votes from mutual funds, hedge funds, and pretty much all the votes from investment firms out there, have all recommended support for the Peltz campaign. Peltz is the guy who's leading the charge to get Disney back on the rails. Even, I'm not making this up, the California State Pension Fund has expressed support. Talk about strange bedfellows. Well, see, money managers don't care what kind of movies Disney puts out, but they do care about things like spending $4 billion for Star Wars and having Star Wars turn into a laughingstock, having that value just evaporate. It's like you buy a brand new Bentley, and then you come out tomorrow morning and you've got a rusting Pinto, and it's not like somebody swapped it. It's just that the car just disintegrated on you and you weren't quite aware it was that flimsy. It's taken a long time, but they've managed to do it. The reports are that Peltz thus has a sizable chance of winning the bid, and thus come Wednesday we may witness the first major step by Peltz and Elon Musk to make Disney great again. Ironic, isn't it, Bill? When Lucas, Eisner, and the 3rd Disney generation sell out the legacy, it takes a handful of outsiders to become the true heirs, setting out to restore it. Here's to April 3rd. Oh, and here's a little cherry on top from our Starman today. Are you kidding me? The tweet from Elon Musk saying, excited to join Disney as their chief diversity, equity, and inclusion officer. Oh, it's parody account. Wait a minute. It's April Fool's Day. In any event, so Doomcock, Nerdrotic, everybody else was saying that Disney's done, Star Wars is done, the bid failed because Lucas backed Iger. But it turns out that apparently hope is still alive. I personally think that once you've flogged a horse to death, you can reanimate the corpse, but they're different. They're different. They're not the same. I don't see anybody. I don't see any real genuine Star Wars fans able to overlook what happened or find a way to unsee what they did with Luke Skywalker and Harrison with Han Solo and all the rest of it. You can't undo it. Maybe time to try a new product. I got something in mind. It is time to try a new product. Star Trek is from 1966. Star Wars is from 1977. What have we had since then? Harry Potter counts. Anything else of that magnitude? I can't think of anything. I mean, people say, oh, The Expanse. Yeah, well, The Expanse has fans, but so did Space Above and Beyond. The Expanse is not Star Trek and it's not Star Wars. Those two intellectual properties changed the world. I think we're way overdue for a new one, and I think everybody would be better off looking for a new one than trying to reanimate this corpse. Comes time to say, all right, it's time to trade this baby in. So, moving on. Road Rider. Elon gave the world Tesla, Starlink, and SpaceX. In the eyes of young idealistic people, electric cars save the planet. Starlink brings internet to undeserving people of color around the world. And humans on Mars hope for humanity in their burning Earth nightmare. Question. Shouldn't they be reveling in the glory that is Elon? Yes, this is why Elon is so important. Or in spite of everything he and his assembled amazingly teams have done, Elon sucks because he bought Twitter and opened up free speech to all. Yes. That, and I'm still waiting for that cage match between Musk and Zuckerberg, who chickened out, and I yield my time to member Jacob Belchuk down below because his question is freaking off the hook worthy. Okay, fantastic. Yes, this is the thing about Elon. When you take Tesla out of California, you're not just taking a car company out of California. You're taking the green future out of the green state. It's not the golden state anymore, by the way, for those of you who haven't been paying attention. It's the greeny state. It's a combination of green and weenie. So the greeny state is all about the green future. And the guy who's leading the green future, actually building the cars that people are actually buying, is left California because it's insane. This doesn't get lost on progressives. It creates subconscious psychological strain. We're under a great deal of psychological strain, subconscious psychological strain, but they are too. And this is one of the things that is the most difficult for them to process. This is called cognitive dissonance. When you see things that you know to be true and they disagree with your core belief system, and it causes great emotional conflict because they can't both be right. This is what the essence of the Soviet Union was and why George Orwell was such a genius. George Orwell could never have written 1984 if he had not spent most of his life as a socialist believer in communism. It's only because he truly believed in communism that he became the most effective critic of communism, because he understood how it worked. And among the many, many, many breathtakingly brilliant things that he came up with in that one novel, doublethink was probably the single greatest contribution to understanding how these people work. The concept of doublethink is more nuanced than you may think at first. Doublethink in 1984, in the dystopian future of 1984, is predicated on what happened in the Soviet Union on a daily basis. Doublethink meant the ability to hold two completely contradictory thoughts in your mind at the same time and believe both of them to be true. And that requires a fair amount of intellect to be that deluded. Simple people can't be this wrong. Stupid people can't be as dumb as intellectuals. You have to have a solid intellectual base, a solid IQ base, in order to create something that is that inverted from reality. Most people are far too simple to be that stupid. But doublethink. So, if you're a guy who's really digging what Elon's saving the planet, and really digging the red convertible, and the Starman, and the David Bowie, and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and all that other cool stuff, then it turns out you find out this guy's voting for Trump, you have to process that. And the way they process it is by not processing it. It's doublethink. And it's also thought crime. That's another lesser known and not quite as brilliant ideas, but the idea of thought crime is don't think of something that will make you into a criminal. Just thinking about it is dangerous. That's thought crime. And so this is where they are. They find themselves in a situation where they have to double think themselves all day. I can't stand Elon because he votes for Trump, but boy, that sure looks cool. I wish I was a part of that. Well, the thought crime, stop. Norman, coordinate, and then the smoke comes out of the ears and the little medallion flashes, and that's what they get. So, yes, it's hard on them, and I'm glad. And the more of this we see, the wider it goes, which is why I'm in favor of things like that's not how I wanted to phrase this. That's just a dead end. Forget what I just said, because there's no way for me to finish that sentence and have it make any sense. That's why things like making Easter the transgender day of visibility, and the whole Leah Thomas thing, all of it. That's why I don't welcome it, but it's useful because it pushes more and more people into the doublethink thought crime box. That's what this push on the part of the left is doing. Is just taking more and more garden variety Democrats and turning them from people who maybe have union sympathies or who have, they used to be blue collar workers. They're all blue collar workers are all Republicans now. But, that old school Democrat kind of, we're the party for the little guy kind of thing instead of for the tech billionaires. Those guys are being pushed into doublethink territory, and they don't like it. And some of them continue to doublethink, but a lot of them are leaving. And it doesn't mean they're all becoming Republicans. It just means they're just not voting for this anymore. Not with the kind of enthusiasm. So people, elections are won by enthusiasm. Sometimes it's negative enthusiasm. It's more like, okay, how many people can we get out to stop this guy? But it is ultimately turnout. Turnout is enthusiasm. And there's nobody enthusiastic about Joe Biden. Nobody. Not even Jill is enthusiastic about Joe Biden. It's a chore. They're going to have to carry him. Nobody is enthusiastic about Joe Biden. The enthusiasm for Donald Trump is not only real, it's widespread and growing. So no wonder they're trying to get him in jail before it's too late. Okay, moving on. Eli Noor. Hey, Eli. Any comments about John Barnett Boeing situation? Maybe a Thursday question, but it's aviation related. I don't know anything about John Barnett. I assume he is the CEO who was fired. I don't know the name. All I heard was that the CEO of Boeing was fired. It's going to take a lot more than that. It's going to take a lot more than that. It's going to take the same. If Boeing is going to survive, it's going to take a ground up revolution in the same way that I've talked about often, just plain dismantling the Pentagon, and firing every single general and admiral in the United States military, and take a close look at a lot of the colonels and lieutenant colonels as well, and replace them with majors and captains. And what I mean by that is this kind of rot is so deep where we're going to save money on aircraft by having the parts assembled in various locations or by making diversity our greatest strength or whatever. There are flaws now in those aircraft, and we've been so good at stamping out flaws, and our procedures are so good that we haven't been really badly bitten by them yet. Things have nipped around our ankles. But if Boeing airliners start falling out of the sky because they're assembled without any particular care for quality, and perhaps assembled by people who really aren't the best qualified to be building things like jet aircraft, then all of a sudden people are going to refuse to fly on Boeing airplanes. If it says Boeing on it, they're not going to want to get on it. That hasn't happened yet, but you can see it from here. If that happens, the company's finished. It would really be, if I was on the board of directors of Boeing, and especially if I was a Boeing stockholder, I'd be insisting on some radical action now. And firing the boss is not radical action. Firing the boss is the minimum you can do. When they fire entire branches, when the entire management of a factory is laid off, just gone, just fired, then you'll know. And I'm not saying this is ever going to happen, mind you. It'd be nice if it did. But if you want to look at signs that they're serious, then what happens is you'd see them firing all of the people that run the assembly factories and replace them with people from the factory floor. I'm not talking about the guys who are doing the actual wrench turning, but I'm talking about the guys that are having to deal with the quality control problems on a daily basis. Like, my God, how are we going to make this thing work? This thing is a piece of junk. That kind of thing. It would take action by the shareholders in cooperation with the board to find a person like I don't know enough about the inside details of this. I may be stepping on landmines here. but something to the effect of what happened with Lee Iacocca when he was brought in to save Chrysler, wasn't it Chrysler? Where they were just going out of business, and it's like, we have to create an emergency, and they bring in this guy, and he's changing everything top to bottom. Obviously, Chrysler's not with us anymore, but I remember those days where it was like, we are going to shake this company up, and I remember Lee Iacocca talking about the new K cars and utter garbage, but they were at least an attempt to be better than the previous generation of garbage. It's going to take a white knight like that, I think, to go in there and really, really clean it out. And cleaning out infected wounds is ugly, nasty business. There's nothing pretty about it. It's just, sometimes the deeper you go, the deeper it gets, and it's just, dear Lord. But you got to get all of it. You got to get all of it. And because if you don't, you can stitch it up and seal it up, and you can put all the antiseptic you want on it. It's still in there. It's still festering. It's still growing. You got to get it all. And here, Stud Supreme's got the answer. Short Boeing, Intel, Disney. You'll make a fortune. Exactly. Short them. Sell them. That's what people pay attention to. You want to change Disney? Sell the stock. Eric's in favor of buying the stock so we can control the voting on the board and so on. It's an interesting theory. It might actually work. I'm not positioned to say. I don't follow it that closely. But if you really, really, really want to change Disney, sell all your Disney shares and have everybody else in the country sell theirs too. That is going to get somebody's attention, because there are people who hold large amounts of Disney shares, including George Lucas, who I've never, ever understood. I've never understood the reverence for George Lucas. The reverence for Gene Roddenberry. Roddenberry became a very different guy in his old age. Okay, he got a lot more liberal in his old age, but Gene Roddenberry was a genuine war hero. Roddenberry was a genius, and Star Trek is Roddenberry. The more you learn about Star Wars, the more you realize that Star Wars happened in spite of George Lucas, really not because of him. I mean, you look at George Lucas's original plan for, C-3PO was supposed to be like a car salesman, used car salesman, and wasn't Luke supposed to be like some kind of girl reptile or some weird stuff like that? I mean, I've never thought that George Lucas was a great talent. And once I saw the prequel trilogies, I knew I had evidence, I had receipts. So anyway, that's that, I guess. Let me pull this over here. I can keep an eye on that. Darth Chuck says Lucas's wife edited the movie and saved it. If you've seen the original cut of Star Wars, if you've seen the, now of course this is a work print. A work print, for those of you unfamiliar with it, is when you're assembling a movie and you do the edit, you're not working from the negative, you're working from a work print, and when you get everything cut the way you want it, then you have to go do timing prints. You could do this now in an afternoon with a good color guy. But you had to do timing prints, and you would have to, every single shot would have to adjust the light on the projector that's actually exposing the film. It's just insane. But if you look at the first cut of Star Wars with Luke Skywalker and is it Binks, his buddy, it looks like the kind of things that we would have shot in 77 on videotape. It's astonishingly awful, unbelievably awful. But Binks is a cat. Who is this friend? Biggs. Sorry, thank you, Biggs. Yeah, Biggs. Sorry. Got it wrong. Roy Suarez. Hey, Ray. Hello, Bill. First, I hope you and Natasha had a good time watching the takeoff on Monday. We did. We were somewhat underwhelmed. But that's a credit to SpaceX. It's a clean burning. It's like watching a jet aircraft take off. It's like, oh, look, there goes a 747. Yeah, that's 747, all right. Well, I've seen that now. I'm sure Starship is a different story altogether. Anyway, back to the question. Secondly, I heard a random bit from a podcast a while back and randomly thought about how you say how amazing it would be if electric cars were invented first and oil was suddenly found as a miracle fuel. In short, apparently they were. Back in the start of 1900, almost all commercial and cars, and maybe commercial end cars in cities, were electric. The combustion engine went into use when roads started expanding and becoming more connected with the rest of the U.S. Yes, you can have electric cars in a city, and because you can recharge them. Your point about it being a quick refill that goes much further on a tank versus a battery were true then as well. The issue was batteries were easier to mass produce compared to the combustion engine, and Henry Ford changed that. How about that? In 1890, this is a link. In 1899, 90% of New York City's taxi cabs were electric vehicles. Feel free to browse through this and look into it more if you have the time. Can't wait to binge on Empire of Terror, Ray. Thank you, Ray. That's very kind of all across the board. And a piece of trivia that I did not know about the number of electric cars, because I saw a thumbnail, didn't see the video. I saw a thumbnail about, I think it was the DC-7. That seems like it would be right. So the DC-8 was the Douglas Aircraft's answer to the 707. Looks a lot like a 707. It looks so much like a 707 that, you don't have to be like an aviation genius to figure it out, but they're very similar looking airplanes. But the DC-7, this thing said, miracle, 400 miles an hour, and the fuel economy it got, because jet engines are very, very reliable, very powerful, but they're thirsty. And apparently the DC-7 could do 400 miles an hour plus. The DC-8 does 500, so not a huge difference. And what they saved in terms of fuel, because the internal combustion is relatively efficient compared to the jet engine. You're squirting gasoline in the back of that thing. It looked like a similar to the argument that I made about, you could see a world where the jet engine was developed first because the jet engine's so simple, and then somebody comes along with this insane contraption. It's like, what the hell is this? I call it the internal combustion engine. How many moving parts on this thing? Well, on this one that generates enough power to be roughly equivalent to a jet engine, there's about 11,000 moving parts on this thing. Oh, really? Yep. Reliability issues? Yep. Doesn't create the same amount of power? Nope. Why are we listening to you? Because this thing will fly on this much gasoline. You have our full attention. I've often wondered about that, about several different inventions that seem like, I understand why they happened in the sequence they did, but you can't build a jet engine before the internal combustion engine because you don't have the metallurgy, would be my guess. Steel cylinder head will get to 400 or 500 degrees Fahrenheit, if I remember correctly from my engine monitor. And once they get into the 600s, it's time to start worrying, if I remember correctly. Jet engine interiors are thousands of degrees hot, so you can't start with the jet engine because you don't have the metallurgy. And you don't have the metallurgy without having pretty much a century of trying to make better internal combustion engines. But still fun to think about. Steve Young. WGAW President Patrick Verone, I'm not sure I know what WGAW is. Writers Guild of America West. That's from memory. Patrick Verone on Sunday Morning Shootout, edited by our own Bill Whittle. The discussion was about the future of the entertainment industry, writer's strike. Do you remember the show? Was he right? Here's a link. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. I haven't seen this since 2008. Hang on. I'm not going to show it to you. I'll just play the opening.
Hello, I'm Peter Barth. Hang on. I'm not Peter Goober, and this is Shootout. Pete, more and more business in Hollywood is not about the finished product, the script, or the teleplay. Now, the obsessive activity of the community is all about how to slice and dice that material so it can be recycled, repurposed, downloaded, and whatever. And as a result of that, there's a whole different feeling in the community as to who gets what piece of the pie.
I edited the show.
It's all about slicing and dicing, for example. The writers who created the original pie more and more are sitting there and saying, wait a minute, when something is downloaded,
I put that reversal in.
Repurposed into a cell phone or whatever, or into an iPod.
I'm so happy you sent that.
What piece of the action does the creator of the original material
let me just skip ahead to the credits here. I had fun on that show. I really enjoyed working on that show. Are we going to roll credits here? Do we have
Well,
credits?
thanks for coming in, filling us in on all this.
I laid that music in.
Adventure.
I enjoyed it very much. I look forward to coming back.
No! I've been robbed. Thank you for that. Just for that. Honestly, that meant an awful lot to me, Steve. I had forgotten that. I remember that opening credit sequence. I remember when we changed to that new opening credit sequence. Boy, I can that puts me right back in that chair. That would have been probably 2007, maybe 6 or 7, maybe earlier, because we did it from about 2003 to about 2008, I think, somewhere in there. Those weren't fun times exactly, but they were certainly memorable. Wow. I'm looking forward to seeing that whole interview again. Thank you very much for digging that up. I haven't seen Shootout since I left the show, and that was 16 years ago. So that meant a lot to me. Thank you very much. Hey, it's Janie Wonderman. Hi, Janie. Hello, sir. Hello, madam. Thank you for reading my question. You're very welcome. First, real quick, it's about Candace Owens. If we should wait till Thursday, I'm 100% rewrite this on Thursday. Let me see. Janie, I think I've covered enough about that I want to cover today. I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? Why don't we see if the story's still got legs on Thursday, and if it's got legs on Thursday, we'll cover it again. Because I have a direct interest in this story, you know, and I feel like I certainly attempt to play the middle here as well as I can and try to get people to kind of de-escalate without compromising, you know, principles or out and out, you know, being deceptive. I just think that ultimately you're dealing with people who have egos and emotions just like everybody else. And I think both of them, both Ben and Candace, really let their egos out of the box. And I think the whole thing began with Twitter. I think that it's just inconceivable to me. This is just it's not just Ben and Candace, it's just Twitter in general. It's inconceivable to me that you would address somebody who's it's like if I had a problem with Steve Green and I tweeted it. I for the life of me, I'll never understand it. Because once it goes out in public, now it's your personal honor at stake. Now it's you've been called out. So I do not get it. I don't get it. I really don't. But anyway, so we'll come back to that if it's still there. So we got Jacob Belchik, Roadrunner, and David Millen. Okay, here we go. Got a big David Belchik. Let me have a look at this baby here. So we get this thing down to size here. Okay. This is about Sweet Baby. I'm sorry to kind of pre-chew this, Jacob, but it's a whole page. So let me just get because I know that basically the story. Okay, so here's what happened. You want to talk about painting like red meatballs on the wings of an airplane to make sure everybody knows it's a Japanese Zero. It's a company called Sweet Baby, and they're a grift organization, and basically their entire contribution to the creative process is they are willing to, at a very reasonable rate, I might add, review your script for you, and then using their experts in diversity and inclusion, recommend several ways that you can make your product much more marketable by appealing to represented classes of people around the world. It's got really nothing to do with whether or not it's a good game or whether or not it's a good script or whether it's interesting or dramatic. The main thing is it diverse enough, and are you pumping the message hard enough? Because that's what people really want. That's basically Sweet Baby's business plan, is to convince people that they need legal review from the social justice warriors in order to prevent cancellation. So in a lot of ways, it's a rerun of the original grift, which was the Rainbow Coalition and Jesse Jackson, who basically figured out that you could blackmail businesses by saying, we're going to protest you as an anti-black organization, anti-black lender in terms of a bank, and I'm going to have 500 people here with protest signs in an hour unless you make a donation to the Rainbow Coalition, or whatever his particular foundation grift was. It was blackmail, pure and simple. And that's what this is. Now, they've been doing this for a long time, and they got their fingers in a bunch of different video games. And then one of the problems with being a leftist is occasionally you don't realize that you've got a hot mic and you actually say what you really believe instead of, you say the quiet part out loud. And she basically said, if your game isn't basically pulling every element of most video gamers are white males. But if you're not destroying white males throughout your video game, then you're not doing enough. And what you need to do is you need to sit down with your marketing department. This is the advice of the CEO of Sweet Baby, saying to people, sit down with your marketing person and tell them how you're going to bring the wrath of the woke mob down on them if they don't wokeify this script that you've written. And to everyone's amazement, gamers didn't like this. Well, it's because gamers are not left-wingers. Left-wingers don't play Red Dead Redemption 2, because Red Dead Redemption 2 is what you do to play Cowboys and Indians when you can't go out and play Cowboys and Indians. So it's another example of people working behind the curtain to change the narrative away from good storytelling and in the direction of what you need to learn, what lesson you need to have beaten into your head regarding the super narrative. And so it basically, there's an interview, I've seen the interview, where, and it's another one, it reminds me very, very, very much of the interview that woman gave who was in charge of Bud Light's marketing. I forget her name, and I'm glad she's lost to history. She's a footnote in Google somewhere, and I don't care to remember it. But you know who we're talking about. The woman who was saying, Bud Light is an old brand, and we've got this frat boy image, and we need to make it kind of future friendly because otherwise it's a dying brand. And then she went off to kill the dying brand, right? That chick. Well, she did that. She made that speech doing a very small podcast. So she's getting a chance to be chatty, and she accidentally says the quiet part out loud. I do a bunch of podcasts, big and small, mostly small, but I don't worry about saying the quiet part out loud because I say the quiet part out loud all the time. There is no quiet part for me. This is it. This is what I believe. I don't have to cover it. I don't have to be on guard. You can run all the hot mics you want on me. I'm never going to say anything that's a contradiction of my values. And everybody's pretty clear on what my values are, or else he wouldn't be here. So it was one of those examples where the curtain gets blown aside by a nearby passing tornado or something, and you realize that there are people behind the scenes actually moving the levers on things that you had assumed were being written for content rather than for impact. And so a new generation of non-Democrats is born. I almost said Republicans, but that would require us having a presence in this fight and some kind of a plan, to win people over. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal, and it's an encouraging deal not because the cover was blown. It's an encouraging deal because a lot of people got genuinely angry about this. It became a thing. I don't think Sweet Baby's market share is what it used to be, and I don't think their their stock evaluation is either. As a matter of fact, I'm fairly convinced that after this now they're poisoned, which is great. They've canceled themselves. Hooray! There is this idea, you can only be canceled by people that you work for. I mean, if you don't work for anybody, you can't be canceled. You can be. I've watched my influence get dialed back, and I've seen it happen in specific quanta, where it's here and then it's here. There's no way to explain this kind of a curve. I can certainly explain that kind of a curve as something other than somebody turning a wrench someplace, but this, no. And then back up and then down overnight, no. Somebody's messing around. So, people don't like that. And the more people that get personally stung by the left's inability to leave things alone, the angrier they get, the less likely they are to vote for them. So this is all good news in the long run. So hopefully that'll cover basics of it for you. We got Roadrunner. We got Dave Newland. Roadrunner NM. Greetings, friend William, and as to you as well. Good sir. Do you know when the free access to Daily Wire will start? I'm sure there's a lot of fans who are very interested. Thank you. You're welcome. It looks like I'm going to be doing a show with some guy over at Daily Wire, some I don't know, some third-rate talent that they picked up to fill the gaps, I guess. Clavin dude or something. So I'm doing Clavin on April 26th. So April 26th will be when the last episode of Empire of Terror drops. So we could probably start the process now. As I said, I'm holding on to that 30-day offer so that when it's activated, I can be ready to move. I don't know how often I do this, but sometimes it's necessary. You can see over there we have the hanging at an askew angle is the gigantic 10-foot projection screen that we're going to be using to project the story mechanics graphics behind me. Instead of keying me in, it's going to be all practical. All of these cardboard cutout figures are going to be in real space. It's going to have a completely different vibe to it than doing it digitally. And so I got to get these shows up and quickly because I'm well behind schedule. Needless to say, I'm 5 months, half a year practically behind schedule. But that window has to be, my understanding is it's a 30-day window. And I want to start that clock right when I'm ready to take in as many new members as I can with the offer. I don't want to lose a week or two of that lever because it's just not smart. And it should have happened a while ago, but nevertheless, there it is. What I want everybody to have a chance to see in their 30-day trial membership, in their 30-day free membership. I caught myself. I'm trying. I'm working on it. In their 30-day free membership, I want everything to be available. I don't want it to be so that, your free membership expires on Tuesday and the last show drops of Empire Terror drops on Sunday. Want to have a little cushion in there. But the answer is it'll be coming soon, and that'll be really, really nice to hear back from all the members and all the regulars on what they thought about Empire of Terror. For those of you who have not seen it yet, I will have that information for you shortly. And thanks for asking about it. Last one. Hey Bill, no real question, but did Shelley get you the email I sent about the sinking of the Cape San Juan? First-hand account from my father who was on the ship when it was hit. It was a troop carrier, and he was on his way back to the Pacific. Yes, and it is sitting here on my desk somewhere. One of the things I'm looking forward to the most about this week is coming in and doing things. I have not answered any of the emails about the DCS squadron yet. It's not because I don't want you to think I'm lying about this. When I say it's not like I didn't have the time, because that would just be wrong. I didn't have the brain space. I just, that's how I work. When the situation with the Frank Luke thing became so all-consuming, I put everything else aside, and I mean everything else. That's why I couldn't incrementally move Mace Mattingly along. I couldn't incrementally move any of this stuff. It's like I have to finish this first and then do it sequentially. So it's on my desk here. I'm looking forward to reading it, and I did get it, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet, and I'm looking forward to, and it sounds like it's a incredible story. So there's that. Okay, well, we have a century of people here. I've got an entire century of 100 soldiers and 9 centurions on YouTube right now. And we got a whole 42 on Twitch. And some people say those are small numbers, but I say, first of all, I'd rather have small numbers of good people than large numbers of bad people. And secondly, I'm astonished that there's anybody listening to this at all, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm astonished and grateful. So things are going to start. You're going to start seeing some progress on some things that have been on holding fire for a long time, and again, your patience and understanding of just the entire fact that you're willing to tolerate, let alone grasp, build time is amazing to me. So, go Gators! All right, so that'll do it. This show is made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com who keep things going. And I think there's going to be more of you rather than fewer in the near future. I got a very good feeling about this. I certainly am fired up and feeling, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and feisty, ready for a little rumble. So there's that. All right, so let's check on out of YouTube now. Somebody, when I checked out of YouTube on Thursday night, I went to the screen, the screen with no sound, and I left the screen on, and then I just kept streaming because it always seemed rude to me just to kill the stream. So I just kept streaming with the end screen there, and I'm sitting here at my desk half an hour later or something, and I see something like, should somebody tell the boomer that he's still streaming on YouTube? And I thought, who boomer would that be? Oh, I see. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say good night, YouTube. Good night, YouTube. And we will see you here Thursday night for the Stratosphere Lounge. Thanks for joining us. Okay, and see ya.